What's going on, people? My name is Batman, and the first thing I want to say about today's Advanced Warfare multiplayer reveal is that they really need to stop letting the developers themselves give the presentation. They are just never very high-quality public speakers. And that's nothing against them, I'm just saying I think these live multiplayer reveals would be much more enjoyable if I wasn't cringing every time the mafia boss looking guy cracks a joke about the skinny Swedish looking guy not being good at the game, and it's so obviously scripted that it falls hopelessly flat with the live audience. But maybe that's just me. Now get a fucking YouTube commentator to do that part or something. But I will say this, I'm glad that the MP footage they showed actually involves some skilled clips. You know, it seems like every FPS trailer for single player or multiplayer I've seen in the last 2 years, it always looks like it's being played by someone who's touching video games for the first time in their life. And I think they do that so as not to intimidate the weaker players who are actually in the majority of their customer fan base, who maybe look at, you know, really skilled gameplay and feel like they can't live up to that. Why should they get the game? I don't know. It's very, you know, subconscious and whatnot. But the problem is that kind of gameplay puts me to sleep, and I think puts a lot of other people to sleep as well. And that's how I felt about that campaign mission gameplay they released as well. It was just very dull, right? But they, you know, this time around looked like it was some pretty skilled, though granted probably scripted, action going on. Now, the main takeaway for me regarding the reveal is that it is most likely going to be the most fast-paced Call of Duty we have seen. I did not realize or expect them to give the double jump capability to everyone all the time, but they did, and we can't know for sure what the general effects of this will be, but I don't think it could possibly be any kind of good news for camping and or defensive playstyles. For one, very few people are going to want to stay still. In my experience, if the mobility itself is enjoyable, people will be extra mobilized just for the sake of being mobilized. For instance, if you've ever gotten into one of those moods in Ghost where you just keep sliding around, often for no particular reason at all, or like in Titanfall, people get antsy if they go too long without wall running, you just feel like you're wasting your time almost. Or even something like the parachute mechanic in Battlefield 4, or that speed bike in Destiny. Mobility, if it's done right, is addictive and entertaining, even when it's just mobility for mobility's sake, and so there's going to be an almost instinctive motivation to rush. And two, even if some players should decide to stay still, it's going to be very difficult for them to defend their position because in theory claymores or whatever ground-based traps can be placed will be much less effective than ever before, and any elevated position might as well not even be elevated. For example, in Ghosts, the camper's wet dream, on a map like Octane, obviously you have a bunch of very effective camping spots on the rooftops and second stories of every building on that map. But if you had exosuits on every player in the match, those spots would not be safe spots any longer. They would not be as easily defendable in any way and would ironically make you even less safe than if you weren't camping, because when you hold a camping spot like that, you're putting yourself up on a pedestal for everyone on the enemy team, saying, hey, look at fucking me. And the number one way campers die is when they kill someone and that someone gets pissed off and comes looking for their revenge kill. The camper has to be able to defend themselves against someone who is deliberately looking for an opening to kill them, and if you can just jump into the camper's face, there's always a huge, basically indefensible opening for attack. And so all the players who have been jerking off to the Ghost defensive playstyle camper-friendly maps for the last year are probably in for a bit of a rude awakening on the new COD. Now, to make things even faster, every time somebody thrusts with their exosuit, they show up on radar. That's going to dramatically increase the rate at which people find and fight one another, especially over Ghosts. Because based on what we saw from the MP gameplay, the maps themselves, that thrust jump is going to be an important part of not only fighting, but just getting around. And also, like I was talking about, I think people are just going to want to do it often just for the sake of doing it. And I think this is going to provide a constant stream of information, granted in small blips, but on that mini-map, and make it that much easier for everyone to move at the very least in the general direction of the enemies that they're looking for. So this should keep the flow at a steady pace, whereas Ghost doesn't have flow, period. And I also think the exosuits are going to bring in a wider skill gap for starters. Like if you're showing up on radar every time you thrust, you're probably going to want to think before you thrust, right? If you think you're in close proximity to a bad guy, you're going to want to stay grounded, right? So there's going to be a gap between the people who thrust wisely and the people who just thrust. And mobility in general widens the skill gap, and the trailer gives a perfect example of this. When you see that one guy thrust and then sort of jump backwards and land behind the guy who's chasing him, those kinds of advanced mobility tactics are going to make a difference in the gameplay. You're going to be shooting someone, they're going to try to sort of, you know, jump dodge, and if it works, you got outplayed. The mobility gives more creative options to players to outplay one another. This creates a gap in the people that devise new mobility tactics and those who can't, and I'm sure the maps themselves also will play to this gap, and I'm also quite certain there will be shortcuts and other advanced ways to get from point A to point B, the quickest using the thrust jump. Certainly that's something we've seen in Titanfall, and for those of you who have played, I'm sure you've realized that the veteran players have found very clever opening routes to get across the map in 10 seconds and get your ass right off the spawn. There will be special routes in Advanced Warfare. Now, is this game ripping off Titanfall? Yes it is, but it's not the exosuit or the mobility or the futuristic setting. It's the burn cards. Advanced Warfare is bringing in kill streaks that you can select, or special abilities that you can select before a match starts and then use one time during the match whenever you like. It's the exact same mechanic that they have in Titanfall, and it serves the same purpose, compressing the skill gap. People get free shit whenever they want. They're guaranteed that free shit at a certain point once they build up the currency. They said it best themselves on stage. During the reveal, the dev said, and I quote, "This is for players who don't get kill streaks that often." And then he made a joke about how that means, you know, it's for the other guy on the stage, and nobody laughed, and I cringed. But I much prefer this method to how Ghost went about it by just building an armada of easily defendable camping spots and then throwing in IEDs as if it wasn't easy enough to defend a single entrance camping spot. As far as mobility goes, the entire genre has been trending towards enhanced mobility for a while now, and the double jump has certainly been around longer than Titanfall. And this game was in development before and during Titanfall's development period, so I don't think that it's a rip-off, and I also don't think it's fair to say the exosuit is a rip-off of Halo. I mean, enhanced armor suits with special abilities have been around at least since Metroid, and if AW is ripping that off of Halo, then Titanfall ripped Titans off of MechAssault. The best ideas are usually stolen. Lord of the Rings was at its core plagiarism, but if it's good plagiarism, nobody will mind. But the bird cards thing, that's ripped off of Titanfall, no doubt about it, and that is something they could have decided to put in fairly recently, so I'm sure that was a copy and paste. The Pick 13, I think, is a great idea. I'm going to have some fucking fun with that, because when I play COD, I'm going for montage clips, right? So I don't fucking need kill streaks, so I'm going to be the most souped up fucking soldier you've ever seen. But I am skeptical of the whole revamped customization options thing, because, you know, they're letting you pimp out every individual piece of armor and wristbands and goggles and shit like that, but I'm worried this is just going to turn into a mega platform for fat amounts of microtransaction spam. We have to stand against that bullshit. The armor is about showing off, right? So they said as much during the reveal. People can check out shit in the lobby and whatnot. Well, anytime you see someone with fucking microtransaction armor, with the most savagely passive-aggressive tone you can muster, ask that little brat how much his armor costs. Make sure he knows that you know that it wasn't skill but mama's wallet that earned that shit. And when he tells you how much he paid, remind him that all the armor you're wearing was purchased with blood, sweat, and tears, motherfucker. Now, going forward, will this game save Call of Duty? I don't know. I think it's a step in the right direction. But it's not like they had any other direction to go following Ghost. But I don't think it necessarily has what it takes to bring back people who have gotten tired of the COD formula in general. However, Black Ops 3 might very well have that capability. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and that's something we'll discuss in the next epic Call of Duty commentary. But until then, please remember to rate the video. Let me know how you motherfuckers are feeling about the MP reveal. Maybe I can build some of what you say into an entirely new commentary. I'm always on the lookout for insightful information and whatnot, so we'll see. But until then, please remember to rate the video, and may the Force guide you. This is Batman, signing out.